After their confrontation, Selene was not allowed a horse. She was taken in a closed carriage, flanked by an armed escort. The curtains were drawn tight. The ride felt longer than it was. Inside the darkness, Selene sat straight-backed, wrists unbound, but watched. She did not cry. She did not plead. She replayed the kiss instead, the warmth of it, the steadiness. If that was the price, she thought, then at least it had been real. The doors to the king's study slammed open hard enough to rattle the sconces. Selene did not wait to be announced. Her father looked up from his desk slowly, the way a man does when he already knows why the storm has come. The fire crackled behind him, steady and indifferent. "You will knock," he said evenly. "No." Her voice broke before she could steady it. "You have to let her go." Silence expanded between them. The king set his quill down with deliberate care. "I don't know what you're referring to." Selene stepped forward, tears bright but unshed. "Don't do that, not now, not with me." Her hands trembled at her sides. "It's not her fault," she said, the words spilling out. "She didn't plan this. She didn't ask for any of it." The king rose slowly from his chair. "You forget yourself." "I remember myself," Selene shot back, for the first time. The admission hung in the air like something fragile and dangerous. "She is a commoner," he said, not unkindly. "This is not about fault. It is about order. She has done nothing wrong. She exists in proximity to a future queen. That alone is enough." Selene crossed the room in 2 strides. "If you punish her for loving me, then punish me instead." His expression hardened, not with rage, but with something colder. "You believe this is about love?" "Yes, it is about stability." The word landed like a verdict. Selene's breath hitched. "You are killing her to preserve an illusion." "I am preserving a kingdom." "And what am I?" she demanded. "A banner? A treaty?" "You are my daughter," he said sharply, "and you were born into duty." The tears finally fell. "She will die because I cared. Is that the kind of kingdom you're preserving?" He did not answer. That silence was answer enough. Selene's voice dropped to something raw, stripped of royalty. "I will stand at that altar. I will smile. I will give you the alliance you want, but you will not destroy her for it." The king studied her, truly studied her, as though not a child, not an heir, but a threat. "You presume you are bargaining from a position of strength." "No," Selene said quietly. "I am begging." The word seemed to cost her. For a moment, something flickered in his gaze, regret, perhaps, or recognition of inevitability. Then it was gone. "You will return to your chambers, and you will remember who you are." Selene stood still. "I know exactly who I am." And for the first time, the king was not certain that obedience would follow. She turned and left without bowing. The fire continued to burn, but something in the room had shifted. Near dusk, Amara's cell door opened. "You're being released," a guard said flatly. No explanation, no apology. Amara stared at him, wary. Why? Orders changed. That frightened her more than confinement had. They did not escort her far. She was released beyond the palace gates, handed her cloak, and dismissed like a resolved inconvenience. The sky was bruised purple with approaching night. Wind carried the scent of rain. Amara walked quickly at first, then faster. Then she ran. Something was wrong. Not a thought, a knowing. The cottage door was ajar. It never stood open. Amara slowed, breath catching in her throat. "Papa?" No answer. Inside, the hearth was cold, a chair overturned, and on the floor, Thomas. He was still alive, barely. There was blood beneath him, dark against the wooden floor. Not violent chaos, but enough to tell the story of what had been done. Amara dropped to her knees. "Papa!" His eyes fluttered open at the sound of her voice. Recognition flickered. He tried to speak. The words did not fully form. Amara pressed her hands gently against him, trying instinctively to hold him together, as though love could seal what steel had opened. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm here." His hand twitched, searching. She took it. It was already cooling. His breathing was shallow, uneven. He looked past her for a moment, as if expecting someone else, or remembering. Amara bent closer. "Who did this?" she asked softly, though she already knew. His lips moved. No name came, but fear had. Not the confusion of illness, the fear of men who came with purpose. His fingers tightened weakly around hers, then loosened, and did not tighten again. The room went impossibly still. No dramatic cry tore from her throat. Grief does not always arrive loudly. Amara stayed kneeling beside him, forehead resting against his chest long after it stopped rising, whispering apologies she did not know how to finish. Outside, rain began to fall, slow, relentless. Amara buried her father herself, a shallow grave in the meadow where he had once walked, wildflowers gathered with numb hands. No priest came, no neighbors lingered long. When it was done, Amara sat beside the fresh earth until night fell. Grief did not explode. It settled, heavy, unyielding. Selene sensed it before she knew it. A heaviness settled in her chest, sudden and inexplicable. She demanded answers from servants who had none to give. When she confronted her mother, Queen Alone's expression did not change. "Some consequences cannot be avoided," she said. "You would do well to remember that." Selene's hands trembled. "Did you?" Elone raised a hand. "I did nothing," which was true in the most damning way. Scared for Amara's life, Selene responded the only way she knew. She became flawless. She attended every lesson. She smiled at every gathering. She stood beside Harlan with grace that drew admiration and quiet envy. Her mother watched her closely, approval flickering like candlelight. "Good," Queen Alone said once. "You are remembering who you are." Selene bowed her head. Inside, something hollowed. The announcement came with fanfare. Banners were hung, bells rang, the wedding date was set. Selene stood before the court as applause echoed around her, her expression serene. In the crowd, a few servants exchanged glances. Outside the palace walls, the news traveled quickly. Amara heard it from a passing merchant. She nodded, thanked him, went home and sat in the dark long after the candle burned out. Selene's chambers became smaller without changing shape. Guards appeared outside her door, not oppressive, not overt, just present. Her walks were shortened, her visits supervised. Even the gardens felt watched. Harlan noticed her restlessness. "You seem distant," he remarked one evening, pouring wine. "Cold feet?" Selene met his gaze evenly. "I am tired." He laughed, dismissive. "That will pass." She wondered if he truly believed that, or if belief no longer mattered. Selene's letters arrived days later. Too late. Amara read them once, her hands shaking, then fed them one by one into the hearth. The paper curled, blackened, vanished. "I can't," Amara whispered to the empty room. "I can't do this anymore." The ashes offered no reply. Wedding preparations intensified. Selene moved through them like a ghost, her obedience now brittle, dangerous. Something had shifted inside her, not resignation, but resolve sharpened by loss. She no longer believed distance could save anyone. Far from the palace, Amara packed what little she owned. She did not plan to run toward Selene. She planned to disappear from the reach of a world that had already taken everything else. The palace did not sleep. Servants hurried through corridors with baskets of flowers and bolts of fabric. Candles were replaced as soon as they burned low. Somewhere, musicians rehearsed the same gentle melodies over and over until they lost all meaning. Selene stood alone in her chamber, her wedding gown laid out across the bed like a body prepared for burial. Ivory silk, pearls sewn with painstaking care, a future stitched closed. She touched none of it. Instead, she went to the window and looked toward the distant dark beyond the walls. the road that vanished into trees, into shadow, into everything forbidden. For the first time, the fear was gone. What remained was unbearable certainty. Selene did not flee like a heroine from a song. She dressed simply. She braided her hair herself. She left her crown behind. A sympathetic servant, one whose brother had once vanished for loving the wrong person, looked away as Selene passed. The guards at the post were distracted by a delivery gone awry. The gates opened. The night swallowed her whole. The horse knew the way better than Selene did. The city fell away behind her, its lights dimming, its noise fading into a hush broken only by hoofbeats and wind. The air smelled of damp earth and pine. As she rode, Selene thought of every moment she had tried to be careful, every time she had stepped back, every silence that had done nothing to spare the people she loved. By the time she reached the edge of the woods, her resolve felt like stone. The cottage stood unchanged and utterly altered. No fire burned inside, the windows were dark, the door hung closed. Selene dismounted slowly, her pulse loud in her ears. She hesitated only once before knocking. No answer. Amara sat at the table, a single candle guttering beside her. She had not fully packed yet. Her belongings lay scattered, half prepared, half forgotten. She looked up at the sound of the door. Silence. Then, Amara! The voice cracked on her name. Her breath stopped. She did not move toward the door. "It's me, Selene," Selene called softly. "Go away," Amara said, firmer now. On the other side, something shifted, a palm against wood, a quiet, breaking inhale. "Please," Selene whispered. "I have nowhere else to breathe." The words shattered whatever resolve Amara had built. She crossed the room and pulled the door open. The door closed harder than Selene intended. Amara didn't turn around. The cottage still smelled faintly of earth and smoke, of freshly turned soil. "You shouldn't be here," Amara said. Selene took a step forward. "I had to see you." Amara let out a hollow laugh. "You've seen enough, haven't you? The prison, the funeral." The words sat heavy between them. Selene's jaw tightened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Push me away like I ordered this." Amara spun around then. Her eyes were red, but not from weakness, from fury held too long. "They didn't need your order," she said. "They just needed to know I mattered to you." Silence fell hard. Selene absorbed the blow. She didn't defend herself this time. Instead, she stepped closer. Amara didn't move back. Selene's composure began to crack. "Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I sleep? Then why are you here?" That was the real question. The space between them was barely a breath now, close enough to feel the heat of anger, the tremor beneath it. Selene's hands flexed at her sides, as if resisting the urge to reach out. "Because staying away didn't stop anything. It didn't save you. It didn't make me noble. It just made me miserable." Amara's chest rose sharply. "You don't get to make this about what you feel." "Then what am I supposed to make it about?" Selene's voice broke, not loudly, but deeply. "Duty, appearances, a throne that devours anyone who stands too close to me?" Amara swallowed hard. "You're the princess, and you're the only thing that feels real." The air shifted, not softer, just more honest. Amara's hand came up, pushing against Selene's shoulder, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to create space. "Don't," she warned. "Don't what?" "Don't say things you can't stand by when the crown calls you back." Selene stared at her. The anger drained from her face, replaced with something raw and exposed. When she spoke again, her voice was no longer sharp. It was certain. "You," she said. The word landed like a heartbeat. Amara frowned slightly. "What?" Selene stepped into her space fully now, close enough that their breath mingled. "You," she repeated, steadier. "I want you." Not whispered, not pleaded, stated. The tension snapped. Amara's resolve faltered visibly, shoulders loosening, eyes flickering between Selene's mouth and her gaze. Selene's hand lifted slowly, giving Amara time to stop her, before she stopped and let her hands trail over her clothes, loosening buttons one by one, not hurriedly, but with deliberate care, a silent invitation. Amara didn't stop her. The silence that followed was no longer hostile. It was fragile. Amara's hand almost rose unconsciously, fingers curling into the fabric at Selene's waist, as if testing whether she would pull away. Selene didn't. "I'm angry with you," Amara admitted. "I know. I'm furious. I know." A beat. "But I missed you." There it was. Selene's breath caught. "Then don't push me out of this," she whispered. Amara searched her face, for doubt, for hesitation, for royal calculation. She found none, only a girl who had chosen. Selene's hands settled at Amara's waist. Amara's slid to Selene's collar, gripping tight enough to anchor her there. Selene leaned in before Amara could respond, lips meeting hers with a force that startled them both. The kiss carried everything they had denied themselves: longing, fear, relief, and the quiet desperation of love restrained for far too long. When they finally parted, their foreheads rested together. No promises spoken, no future declared, just presence and the dangerous truth of wanting someone more than safety. The room was dim. Only one candle burned on the small table beside the bed. Its light trembled against the walls, casting long shadows that swayed with every breath. They lay side by side on top of the covers, not tangled, not careless, just close enough that their shoulders touched. For a long time, neither spoke. Amara stared at the ceiling. Selene stared at the faint scar along Amara's breast, the one she'd never asked about. The silence wasn't hostile anymore. It was tired. Selene finally turned onto her side. "Amara." The name was soft, careful. Amara didn't look at her. "What?" Selene swallowed. She had faced councils, generals, her mother's cold gaze, but this felt harder. "I am sorry your father is gone. I am sorry he suffered, and I am sorry that loving me put him in danger." No defensiveness, no excuse, just the truth. Amara's breathing shifted, not breaking, but changing. "You didn't hold the knife," she said quietly. "No," Selene answered, "but my name sharpened it." That landed. Amara finally turned her head to look at her. There was no accusation in her eyes now, only exhaustion. "You think carrying the blame will make it even?" Amara asked. "No," Selene said, "it won't." She reached forward slowly, giving Amara time to move away, and rested her hand lightly over Amara's. "I just don't want you to think I don't understand what was taken from you." Amara's fingers twitched beneath hers. "He was all I had," she said. Selene nodded once. "Tell me about him." That surprised her. Amara looked away again, but this time it wasn't to retreat, it was to remember. "He hated the palace," she murmured, said it glittered too much to be honest. A faint, fragile smile touched her mouth. Selene listened, really listened. "He'd wake before dawn every day, even when there was nothing to fix, said the world felt simpler before other people were awake." The candle flickered lower. Selene's thumb traced a small, steady line across Amara's knuckles. "I wish I'd known him," Selene said. "He wouldn't have liked you," Amara replied automatically. A beat. "Eventually," she added. Selene let out a quiet breath of almost laughter. "I would have tried anyway." Amara's composure cracked then. Not violently, not dramatically. Her eyes filled. Selene didn't pull her into an embrace. She simply shifted closer, present. When Amara finally turned toward her, it wasn't passion that moved her, it was grief. She tucked her face against Selene's shoulder, and Selene wrapped an arm around her carefully, as if holding something breakable. "I'm so tired," Amara whispered. "I know," Selene answered. They lay like that, the apology no longer just words, but something shared in silence. Outside, the night carried on. Inside, two girls held each other, not to escape what had happened, but to survive it. Dawn crept in through the window, pale and unmerciful. Selene woke first. She watched Amara breathe, memorizing the curve of her face, the steadiness she had always drawn strength from. There was no fantasy left now, only consequence. When Amara woke, their eyes met, and neither pretended this could be anything but fragile. "I have to go," Selene said. "I know," Amara replied. They parted without promises, no vows of escape, no lies about safety. Only one truth passed between them, unspoken but understood. Whatever came next, the choice had finally been made freely. Selene rode back toward the palace as the bells began to ring. Amara stood in the doorway long after she disappeared, hand pressed to her chest, not in despair, but in fierce, aching resolve. The bells rang until the sound lost all meaning. Selene stood beneath the cathedral's vaulted ceiling, light spilling through stained glass in fractured colors that danced across stone and silk. The congregation watched her with reverence, envy, relief. She spoke the vows clearly. Every word landed where it was expected to land. None of them touched her. Harlan's hand closed over hers, firm, proprietary. His smile was wide, triumphant. To anyone watching, the union looked flawless. Only Selene knew how carefully she kept her breathing even. The palace celebrated long after midnight. Music echoed through marble halls. Courtiers toasted the union of strength and stability. Gold shimmered, laughter flowed. Inside the royal chamber, it was quiet. Too quiet. Harlan removed his ceremonial coat, folding it carefully over a chair. He looked pleased, not tender, not cruel, simply assured. Selene stood by the balcony, crown already removed, staring into the dark courtyard below. When he approached her, she stiffened. "Selene," he said, voice measured, "we don't have to make this awkward." She turned slowly. "I'm not ready." The words were calm, firm, not dramatic. He studied her. "It's our wedding night." "Yes. And I'm not ready." It was the first boundary she drew, soft but immovable. Harlan didn't press that night, but something in his expression shifted. Days passed, then weeks. Whenever Harlan reached for her, Selene would gently step away. "I'm still adjusting. I need time. I want this to feel right." Always polite, always composed, never yielding. At court, they performed perfectly, hands linked, smiles aligned, but behind closed doors, she kept space between them. And on the nights when she sensed his patience thinning, she prepared. Nothing dramatic, nothing reckless. A heavier pour of wine, an extra splash of strong cordial, sometimes a mild sleeping draught slipped into his cup, subtle enough to seem like exhaustion from endless celebration and state duties. Harlan would grow drowsy by the fire, irritation fading into fog. Selene would help him to bed, wait until his breathing deepened, then move to the far side of the chamber, sitting awake in silence, alone in her own marriage. It wasn't triumph, it wasn't cleverness, it was survival. Every night she avoided him, she knew she was tightening a wire between them. Harlan began watching her differently, less like a husband, more like a strategist. "You don't trust me," he said once. She met his gaze steadily. "Trust takes time." "How much time?" She didn't answer, because the truth was simple. She would never give him what belonged to her heart. That part of her lived elsewhere, in a small cottage with uneven floors and a girl who never asked for a crown. By the third month, whispers began. A marriage unconsummated is not just private tension in a royal court, it is political instability. Harlan felt it. He pressed harder in conversation, not forcefully, but with growing frustration. "Are you ashamed of me?" "No." "Then what?" Selene's control slipped just slightly. "I didn't choose this." The silence that followed was colder than any argument. This deepens Harlan's later fury. He wasn't just betrayed, he was denied, publicly bound, privately refused. And when a man raised to believe entitlement equals honor discovers he has neither, he breaks. It took time before Selene dared leave the palace at night. She planned carefully, timing patrols, bribing a single guard whose loyalty bent under the right weight. She wore no fine clothes, no jewelry that might catch moonlight. The forest welcomed her like a held breath released. When she reached the hidden cottage deeper in the woods, a single candle burned in the window. Amara had waited. Their reunion was quiet, almost reverent. They spoke first about small things, safe things, about the garden Amara had begun planting, about court gossip Selene repeated with dry humor. Only after words ran thin did they touch, a hand over another's, a shoulder leaning into a chest. This was maintenance, keeping something alive under hostile conditions. Returning to the palace before dawn, Selene felt the fracture inside her widen. There was Selene the court knew, poised, dutiful, crowned, and Selene who breathed freely only in the woods, unadorned, honest, loved. Holding both required constant vigilance. Mistakes would be fatal. Suspicion did not arrive as accusation. It arrived as questions. "You've been restless," Harlan said one evening, pouring wine. "Unhappy?" Selene met his gaze calmly. "Marriage is an adjustment." He studied her longer than necessary. So is loyalty. The words were mild. The implication was not. Whispers moved faster than truth. Servants noticed Selene's absences. Guards compared schedules. A stable hand mentioned a horse used only at night. Nothing concrete, nothing provable, but patterns form their own evidence. Amara sensed it too, the way the forest felt less safe, the way distant sounds lingered too long. She began changing meeting places, extinguishing candles early, listening before opening doors. Love became a discipline. Living in hiding wore on Amara. Isolation pressed in where grief already lived. Some nights she waited alone, fearing Selene would not come, fearing more that she would. Yet when Selene arrived, Amara's resolve always bent. "You don't have to keep risking this," Amara said once, quietly. Selene answered without hesitation, "I do." At court, Selene began slipping, not in obvious ways, but in moments too still, smiles that came a breath too late. Harlan was not a fool. He noticed the distance first, noticed her flinching when he touched her unexpectedly. He noticed how easily she lied now. Selene's polite smiles, her untouched side of the bed, the way her eyes drifted elsewhere, even in conversation. He followed her once and lost her. The second time, he waited. The third time, he prepared. That disturbed him more than anger would have. The decision came without drama. One night when Selene left the palace wrapped in shadow, Harlan followed, not openly, not with guards, alone. He did not know where she was going, only that he would know when he arrived. In the woods, Selene and Amara lay beneath the open sky, wrapped in quiet after closeness. The stars felt too near, too watchful. Selene rested her forehead against Amara's, breathing her in. "I don't regret this," she said softly. Amara opened her mouth to reply, and the night shattered. A branch snapped. A voice cut through the dark. "Get away from her." Harlan stepped into the clearing, his face pale with fury, disbelief twisting his features. A blade glinted at his side, not drawn yet, but ready. "You," he said. Not to Selene, to Amara. "So this is where you vanished to," he said quietly. Selene did not deny it. She rose immediately. "Harlan, you disgrace me," he snapped. "This has nothing to do with disgrace," Selene replied, stepping forward. "It has everything to do with it." His hand moved faster than either of them expected. Steel flashed in the firelight. Amara barely had time to register it, the sudden shift, the intention. He lunged. Selene moved without thinking. There was no calculation, no strategy, only instinct. She stepped between them. The sound was small, a dull, sickening entry of metal meeting flesh. Selene gasped, more in surprise than pain. For a second, none of them moved. Harlan's eyes widened. The blade had not reached Amara. It was buried in Selene's side. Time slowed. Selene looked down, almost curious. Then the pain arrived. Her knees buckled. Amara caught her before she hit the floor. "Selene!" Her voice broke completely. Harlan staggered backward, horror replacing fury. I didn't." Selene's hand fisted weakly in Amara's shirt. Her voice was faint but steady. "Don't touch her." Even now, protecting. Amara pressed her hand against the wound, panic threatening to overtake her. "Why would you do that?" she demanded, tears blurring her vision. Selene's lips curved faintly, absurdly calm. "Because he was aiming for you. You're bleeding." "Yes," Selene breathed. Harlan dropped the knife. "I didn't mean—" "You meant enough," Amara snapped, fury blazing now. Selene's grip tightened slightly. "Go," Selene told him. The authority in her voice, even weakened, froze him. He hesitated, then fled. Selene leaned into Amara, pale but conscious. "You should hate me," Amara whispered, hands shaking as she tried to slow the blood. "I don't," Selene said. Her breathing grew shallower. "I will always choose you. Just a fact." Amara pressed her forehead to Selene's. "You are unbearable," she whispered through tears. A faint smile ghosted Selene's lips. "Still yours." Selene's grip weakened. "Promise me," she whispered. "What?" "Don't let them tell the story wrong." Amara swallowed hard. "I won't." Selene's eyes held hers until the very last second. Then the tension left her body all at once. Just gone. The palace might have buried a princess, but the forest had witnessed a woman who refused to belong to anyone but herself. By morning, the story had already changed. Selene was declared missing, presumed abducted, perhaps killed. Mourning draped the palace in black cloth and careful lies. Harlan stood before the court hollow-eyed, repeating rehearsed grief. But at night, he saw her face everywhere, and knew.